We've got a camshaft to install in this big block today so we can measure push rods, but first we got to run down to storage. Stick around. Yeah, the Super Auto is still here in all its slumbering glory, and I was thinking about on the way over here, probably need to come down and test the coolant to make sure that there's plenty of antifreeze in this thing, since it's basically being stored for winter. And I think I probably should throw some in the air to water intercooler. But for now, let's fire this thing up, let it warm up a little bit, make sure everything's running good. And then while we're doing that, I got another building right next to this one. Now I'm going to go in and see if I can find the intake for the XLR, because we're going to need the mass airflow sensor to get all this thing to work properly again on the stock setup. So I'll dig around on that, and then I'll probably spray some mouse repellent in the process, things like that. Fires right up. Okay, as you can see, Super Auto is running great still. I've been trying this stuff. Natural rodent shield, rodent protector. Let me know if you guys have any experience, or if you have better ideas on making sure that mice don't get in and eat the wiring up, or just spray it all over, even into the engine bay, things like that. But smoke monster in here. Actually gotta get another battery, because I jacked the one out of here. Actually, the one in here was the one that I jacked out of the Cadillac. I put it back in. There's the old one. So I need to get another Optima for that sweet ICT billet battery hold down. Unfortunately, it looks like it's not in here. You know, I'm normally a pretty good hoarder, but it looks like I may have thrown it away trying to break my hoarding ways. It's coming back to bite me in the butt. Woohoo for hoarding. Found it. I still had it. Saved me at least $100. Still have all the air boxes with the filters, the MAF section. We're good to go. Awesome. So just quick update. Harness is like 90% in. You can see got most of the injector and stuff. I need to redo the ignition connectors, because those are the LS style. Uses a different plug here. Luckily, I also saved those. Once again, as I said, hoarding for the win. Everything fell in place pretty nicely. The hardest part, as I said on the removal video, was just getting the ABS harness up through there. And you can see where I rewrapped it kind of down in there, because it was just deteriorated even on the new one. But everything's looking good. There's all the primary connections. Got the new fuse, or the fuse block setups back in where it's supposed to be. So I should be able to button up. I got to do some more connections underneath the exhaust manifold, and then run the wires to the passenger side height sensor and shock sensor, whatever you want to call it, for the mag ride, shock control, I guess. And then we'll be able to button the top end back up. I've got to dig up the harness for the knock sensors and the crank sensor. There's a crank sensor down there by the starter. But other than that, she's about ready. Okay, enough of all that. The part that you guys really want to see, let's get the camshaft installed in this thing. That way we can throw a couple of the lifters in and use our push rod measuring tool and get our push rods measured so we can get those ordered. As I said in the past, going with the Crowder, this is a magazine grind, or a catalog grind. It's the 01521, which is a 390. Oh wait, that's the 230 high rev roller cam, which they say it's a high rev. It's not actually that high of a revving cam. I think it's peak horsepower on this, or peak point on this cam, is designed to be around 18 or 6,800. Okay, we've got our spec sheets here on the cam. So this is a 295/307 with a 683 lift. Clearances on these hot are 18 and 20. So we'll set up around there cold for measuring push rods. We'll go from there. And of course, that's all spec for a 1:7 ratio, which is what we're running. And then later on, I'll go through. I've got a Moroso Pro wheel back there for checking all of our timing events to make sure everything's set up right. My guess is this is a 2-degree advance install. We'll go ahead and throw some Permatex Ultra Slick all over this beast and guide her home. There we go. I had to run a screwdriver in one of the bolt holes. It was not going to let me do it. Okay. Got our cam retaining gear and our bolts ready to go. Our cam retaining plate and our bolts ready to go. Got our cam gear over here and our chain. So, make sure that we're clocked up right down here, which we're not. So, we're going to do 2 degrees advance on the cam for initial install. We've got the crank gear that's adjustable. It's set up on A2, which means that we'll do A2 to dot on the cam on this instead of dot to dot on this setup. So we'll have the 2 degrees of advance built into the cam. Let me make sure I've got everything. I need to grab some Loctite for my retaining plate and bolts. And then we'll throw the chain and gear on and line everything up and kind of run her down. So I got my cam bolts with some red Loctite. I got my retaining plate right there ready to go. We've got our crank where it should be for top dead center with 2 degrees advance. See if we can hang the chain. These this is Chloe's double roller. Be aware, does have a roller bearing that goes on the back side of this before we put that on there. You don't want to install it without that. Okay. Find our dot. We've got our key to the right already. That should put us in the general area of where the cam needs to be to do a dot alignment here. There we go. So we are dot to A2 for our advance. We're going to go ahead and torque these down to 20 foot-pounds, but we're not going to bend our retaining plate ears just yet. We're hoping that everything looks good whenever we go in and check all of our valve timing events. But just in case it isn't, we'll hold off. And then before we install the timing cover, then we'll go ahead and bend our retaining bolt ears to make sure everything stays in place. 20 foot-pounds on these bolts. Okay, now that we've got the cam installed, I've got my Brodix stud girdle poly locks ready to go on here. But I think we got an issue. And I'll tell you what, I have been digging and digging and digging, and I can only find one test check spring that you put on here to take the springs off so you don't bend your push rods. So I'm going to have to order another one of those. I should be able to get it in by tomorrow. But before that, I want to make sure that my tool, because I bought this Summit one, works. And it's got 2 different ends on it for going on your studs, and it should fit on the big end, which means you have to unhook it. There we go. Unhook it and then flip it over because it's set up for the small one originally. So now that we know that the big end will fit in there, let me see if I can find the pin. This thing slides up through here and engages this pivot arm. There it is. I almost thought that I hadn't bought one of these And I was like, I'm pretty sure I bought one. Did some digging, and sure enough, I found it. So literally, I've got one of these sitting in the cart right now. I'm glad I did not buy another one. Now, you're going to need a hose to put air pressure to this thing so you don't lose your valve in the process. Now, they make tools specifically for this, but you can also use a compression tester. If you've got one of those, it'll work. This one from Performance Tools has 2 sizes on it. Go ahead, verify that's the smaller of the 2. And of course, this thing does not have an air nipple on it. Okay, get our bar ready and our spring. I apologize in advance if the air compressor kicks on during this. It probably will. Go ahead and throw our checking spring on there now. And should be able to just push it down by hand. Get our valve seats back in place. Okay. Good to go. Now that we've got one in there, we can take this thing off, and we'll have to wait till we get the other one so we can do it, and then we'll do measuring both push rods at the same time. Okay, so we got our cam installed. We've got one of our checker springs. The other one will be here in a couple days. That way we can go ahead and get our push rod links knocked out, get them ordered, make sure everything's looking good. I mean, that's pretty much it for right now. I've got work that I gotta get back to on the Cadillac, but I wanna give you an update, kind of what's been going on. As usual, you guys know the drill. ABT, always be tuning.